Hi, my name is Jason Garriotte, and you probably don't know who I am. But I'm one of those players that the top pros that you have heard of run through on their way to the gold in most of these tournaments. I started playing pickleball in early 2019 after finally listening to my parents, who had been playing at East Naples since like 2014. I'd always been like, yeah, I'll get to it when I'm done with tennis. But then when I finally tried it, I had to take it seriously and have fun with it, obviously, because I'm wearing a tuck shirt. And I think if you just spend a few minutes here listening to my perspective on a few pickleball-related things, it may clear up a few of what I think are about to be publicly proven misconceptions within the pickleball community. But before I get into that, I need to give you a quick rundown of who I am and what brought me here to give you context for later. And just to let you know, a big part of this is me pointing out my failures because what I thought was going to happen did not happen. So, I grew up playing lots of sports competitively, including baseball, soccer, basketball, wrestling, track, and of course my favorite, tennis. I played all the top regional USTA tournaments, had rankings from the 12s through the 18s in northern Indiana, played the Junior Davis Cup a couple of times, went on to play Division II tennis where I was nationally ranked, transferred to both Purdue and Indiana during the 6 years it took me to finish college, trying to walk on. And both coaches wouldn't even give me a chance or let me practice with the team, even though I had the credentials at that time to do so, but that's another story. Then at 26, I played my first Futures qualifier, which is the lowest level of the tennis tour. And for the next 12 years, I went on to play over 30 of those. Short tours of just a few to several in a row, reaching a career high US professional tennis ranking of 301 in 2002. And this is for Sherry, on the same list as Agassi and Sampras at the time. I won some rounds, but I usually lost first round, sometimes badly. But I do have an official ATP result with earnings from a tournament in Italy, which made me officially a pro tennis player, which I'll get into in a minute. During this time, I was also a tennis teaching pro at a couple of clubs, and then I was the assistant women's tennis coach at Furman from 06 to 09, and the men's assistant at Elon for a year. Then it was business projects for a few years, which brings me to pickleball. Right before the 2019 US Open, I had moved to Naples because my parents lived there and I work online, so generally I can be where I want. So I started playing pickleball and it turned out to be pretty fun. But right away I wanted to play singles, even for the better workout. But couldn't find many people that wanted to play singles, and they really couldn't challenge me anyway. And rec doubles involved me hitting a serve or hitting a return and then watching the other three people play until one of them gets a pop-up or something and they slam it at me and I might get to try to reset or something, but that was worthless. I also was trying to figure out how the tournament system worked. I'd ask people about rankings and they'd say, no, it's ratings. And I'd say, no, rankings. Where are the rankings? And the magazines for that year at the US Open had Tyson, Kyle, and Ben ads, but all three of them listed him as the number one ranked pickleball player in the world. And this was before the APP and the PPA even. And I'm gonna be honest here, as I was watching, I was like, these are the best in the world? I mean, the whole sport's played in the service box. I think I can hang. Which, in my own defense, I think is a pretty common response. Now, I'm going to clarify right here. I was definitely wrong about what I thought at that time. But I wasn't as far off as it may have seemed back then. It was really my failures that made it not happen. Especially people like Arnold and Staksrud and Ignatowicz. And now Alshon. I mean, these guys are doing what I thought I was going to do. There was no APP, PPA, or MLP. I mean, I really couldn't even figure out how I could go pro if I wanted to. So I just decided to move on and I'd come back to pickleball when they got more organized. I mean, I remember making the decision. Then after a couple of months of not playing, I decided that made no sense. I was having fun playing, who cares? So I moved back to Florida, to Fort Myers, in January 2020 because I saw on the map that there was Brooks Parks, there was a whole bunch of courts, and then the Pickleplex was north of there, and I was like, there's gonna be games at one of those two places, or at least courts that I can go play on. And be in Southwest Florida. So as I was getting settled, the deadline came for the US Open and this pro tournament at Simone's YMCA place that both had singles divisions, which I had not been able to play a tournament of yet. I still didn't know what level I was, but I knew I didn't want to play down. So I decided to sign up for the pro division in Simone's tournament and 5-0 in the US Open. And I thought, well, I'll get a shot at the pros, and even if I lose, which I didn't, if I win the 5-0 US Open, which I did, I'll know I'm somewhere in between and justified to pursue pro.